Namaste everyone. Thank you for joining. And the long awaited first class is about to start. This is the curtain raiser for this almost 1 year session. So let's start with 3 ohms. When we chant the Om, we must also have a sankalpa, an intent. The first Om is to transcend this physical body and to be able to connect to the subtle body, to the higher dimension. The second Om, when you chant, before you chant the second Om and during chanting the second Om, the intent should be that you want to transcend this entire universe of all its attachments. You want to say something, Srilata? You have to unmute and tell me. You have to unmute and tell me. Unable to unmute? If you want to say something, please unmute and tell me. Unmute. Unmute the microphone. Not able to unmute it? Okay. So that you're able to hear me, right? The third Om is for us to merge with that unmanifest divine. So these are the 3 Ohms. The first Om is to transcend the physical body and to connect to the higher dimension. The second Om is to transcend all the attachments of this universe. We have so many attachments, to transcend all that. The third Om is to connect with that unmanifest divine. So this is the class on Moksha Shastra. So this is the intent you must have while chanting the Ohms. So let's start with the first Om. Please take a deep breath. Om. Yeah, namaskaram to all of you. So we are going to begin this class with chanting. Assuming she is here.
Yeah, I'm there.
Okay. So we will begin the class by with Kranti. She's going to be chanting the Yoga Sutras. I'm going to share the Yoga Sutra screen so that all of us can see it. Okay. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Kranti.
Yeah. Good morning, everyone, and good afternoon if they are joining from other place. I'll just start. Om. Yasya tva rupamadyam prabhavati jagato nekadhanugrahaya प्रक्षीणक्लेशराशिर् विषमविषधरो नेकवक्त्रः सुभोगी सर्वज्ञानप्रसूतिर्भुजगपरिकरप्रीतये यस्य नित्यं देवो हीशः स वो व्यात् सितविमलतनुर् योगदो योगयुक्तः योगेन चित्तस्य पदेन वाचाम् मलं शरीरस्य च वैद्यकेन योपाकरोत्तं प्रवरं मुनीना पतञ्जलिं प्राञ्जलिरानतोऽस्मि आबाहुपुरुषाकारं शङ्खचक्रासिधारिणम् सहस्रशिरसं श्वेतम् प्रणमामि पतञ्जलिम् श्रीमते अनन्ताय नागराजाय नमो नमः। अथ समाधिपादः अथ योगानुशासनम् योगः चित्तवृत्तिनिरोधः तदा द्रष्टुः स्वरूपे अवस्थानम् वृत्तिसारूप्यम् इतरत्र. These are the first 4 Yoga Sutras which form the basis for all the 4 chapters, 1 to 4. I'll chant from 5. Vrittaya panchataya kleshtaha pramana viparyaya vikalpa netra smritayaha pratyaksha anumana agamaha pramanani viparyayo मिथ्याज्ञानम् अतद्रूपप्रतिष्ठम् शब्द ज्ञानानुपाति वस्तुशून्यो विकल्पः अभावप्रत्ययालम्बना तमो वृत्तिर्निद्रा अनुभूत विषय असंप्रमोषः स्मृतिः.
Thank you. Thank you, Purna.
Thank you.
Before we jump into the sutras, we will look at a bird's eye view of the entire sutras. What would help us is to take a look at this pictorial representation. Able to see that?
No, we are
Okay, you're able to see that, right?
now, yes. Yeah.
Okay. So there are 3 zones that are marked here. Zone A, and then on the right side we have a zone B, and then all the way down is the zone C. You're able to see all that? Right? Okay. The zone A is of the creator, meaning that unmanifest divine that we have been talking about in the last 2 months. So as you can see, zone A is very unique because it does not have this karma klesha component. There is no karma or klesha associated with zone A, the unmanifest divine.
Klesha means, sir? Klesha means?
Klesha means impurities. So
Thank you.
there is nothing associated with the creator. There is no klesha, there is no karma. So he's beyond the klesha karma cycle. That's why we have put the unmanifest divine in zone A. The unmanifest divine, or what we call as the cosmic intelligence, as you can see in this box on the left, whom we call as Ishvara, Sattva Purusha, or Prabhu. That's how he is addressed in the Yoga Sutras. So, the cosmic intelligence of the Sattva Purusha or the Ishvara has created Prakriti or Shakti, the divine godmother. Okay. So the Prakriti is in zone B, and you also have to understand Prakriti is created with karma and klesha. So that's where, from where it all starts for us too. So the intent of Prakriti is to launch the various chittas. The way Prakriti does that is, the Divine Mother, God Mother, however you want to call, is she launches something called a cosmic chitta, the first chitta. In Sankhya philosophy, this is called as Vasudeva. So the way you have to look at it is, it's like a processor which has no intent on its own. You give input, it will give an output. With me? So it's just like an Intel processor, they say, right? Intel processor inside. Now I think it is i12 or i13, something like that. But that processor by itself, the Intel processor by itself, it does not have any intent. You give some input, it will process that, it will give the output, that's all. So similar is the cosmic chitta. So the cosmic chitta, then with the intent of, you can see this arrow mark coming from all the way from Prakriti here. The intent of Prakriti is being fed into the cosmic chitta. So the cosmic chitta then generates many small chittas which are needed for this universe to function. With me, people? So these each individual chitta which are marked as B2, B3, etc. B2, sorry. These are individual chittas. Still, they are at the software stage. There is no hardware. It is all software floating in ether. And from there, we come to the zone C, physical world, the yellow part. This is the physical world where we live in. Whenever there is a conception, then this chitta enters that body. Actually, only when the chitta is ready, a conception happens in this physical world. Be it an animal, be it a human being, be it a plant, whatever it is. Only when the chitta is ready, a hardware is created in this world. Any questions on this? Okay, I'm going to move on.
What is that EMF vibration mean here in physics? Zone C physical world here.
Oh, yeah, electromagnetic force vibrations. So zone C, there are actually two parts. The lowest part is the physical body. This is what it is. This is the lowest in this entire universe. The lowest part is the physical body, but doesn't mean that it is meaningless. Without the physical body, the chitta cannot come and reside and do whatever it has to do, whatever it needs to do.
But when one question comes is the gross body is created, but sometimes body vanishes quickly, right?
So
The question is, what is the purpose of creating chitta in that case?
as we go along, you will understand chitta is not one time. The chitta remains until the karma kleshas go away or burnt out. So it is for the only when it is in the physical body, the karma kleshas can be burnt out. When it is by itself, nothing can be done. It has to remain there. So the physical body is given so that you can burn off the karma and kleshas. So which means that is the purpose of life. The purpose of life is to burn the karma and kleshas and thereby demagnetize that particular chitta, that particular program. So the gross body also has something inside it called the vibrational body or the subtle body, sukshma sharira, that's what we call. So these are two things which are there in us. One is the physical body and then there is the subtle body. With me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. No one else is answering. I'm assuming everyone is able to understand.
Yes.
So, yes.
Yes. Yes.
You are able to understand, Saranya?
Yes.
Good.
Yes.
So this, the entire philosophy here is to be able to connect through meditation, through awareness, to understanding, to the next level, which is the zone B, where our chitta, a copy of our chitta is. We have a copy here in us, and there is a copy of chitta there. So be able to connect to that so that we can access many other things to which we don't have access in the physical body. As you can see here, each chitta, if you look at it here, there is a connection. If you see from the green box to this chitta, so we are all connected in one way to the cosmic intelligence. So we have one connection to cosmic intelligence and one connection to Prakriti. So we have two connections. One connection is to Prakriti and one connection is to the Ishvara. So when we go into the states of Samadhi, which we are going to see later, then this connectivity to Ishvara happens. Otherwise, mostly our connection is with the Prakriti, which means our physical desires, our other desires get satisfied. So for spiritual desires to get satisfied, to go, to evolve as a person, this connectivity has to happen, the connectivity with Ishvara. So on that note, having this picture in your head, there are a lot more intricate things in this. I'm not going to go into that. And as we go through the sutras, all these things will fall into place. I will also send this slide to you so that you can look at it yourself at home and get this picture inside you. Okay? Any questions? Okay. No questions? Yes?
Sir, you said you will send this chart to the Hotmail or WhatsApp group.
WhatsApp group.
Okay, thank you, sir.
So before we, I said I'll give you an overview of all the sutras. So what we, so I'm going to close this. And okay, let it be here for some time. There are 3 people who are greatly involved in this class, but not really part of the group. Couple of them are not even in the group, in the Patanjali Yoga Sutra group. One is Don Gill, who has facilitated this entire Zoom session for us week after week, and she will also be getting the video files down. And then the second one is Purna, who chanted the sutras. Initially, she chanted a prayer, and then following that, she chanted the first 11 sutras. She will be chanting the sutras whenever she is available. Third person is my niece, Bhuvana Sriram. She is not also part of the group. She will be uploading the Zoom files to the YouTube. So generally by the middle of the week, by Tuesday or Wednesday, the video recording of this session will be available. This is true for each and every week. So I want to thank all three of them for making all these things possible. Patanjali, the Muni who wrote these sutras, lived almost 5,500 years back. There is enough evidence to prove that. So which means it was about 400, 500 years before the Mahabharata war. And Patanjali Muni, the name Patanjali, it is split into two parts, Pata and Anjali. In Sanskritam, Patati means to fall. Anjali means we all know to pray. So Patanjali Muni's mother prayed fervently to the divine to bless her with a son, to bless her with a child or son or whatever. And then it so happened that a tiny snake, Sarpa, fell from the heaven on top of her head or in her hands as she was praying. And that became Patanjali Muni. That is what we hear, we read from historical facts. So please understand, these are not some fairy tales. You have to understand this very clearly. These kinds of conceptions have happened where without any intimate contact with the husband and wife, conceptions have taken place, and it is still possible even today. So please don't rule them out as bunkum. I am an engineer myself. For many years, I would have just thrown it away, but it is not so. Also remember, for a child to be born, it is not just enough if the husband and wife engage in intimacy. No, the chitta has to be ready. Only when there is a chitta that is ready, a child will be born, a conception will take place on earth. So please remember these things very clearly. So Patanjali, that name comes from that fact that Patati, that snake fell from the heaven, and his mother was praying. So that's why the name Patanjali. So having said all this, let us see what we are going to see in the sutras. The first section is called Samadhi Pada. So the name itself tells you. Samadhi means it's a very high state where you connect to the unmanifest divine. So he's going to explain various various states of Samadhi and also various states before you get to Samadhi. And this is also an introductory overview or a summary overview, whichever way you want to call it. The first chapter has about 51 sutras. The second chapter has 55. The third chapter has 56. And the last chapter has 34 sutras. So totally 196 sutras. The first chapter is the summary overview, giving you all the different information about the states of Samadhi. The second and third chapters are the body of this sutras. And the last chapter again, is a conclusive overview. So we will see all this as we go through. So as I said earlier, the chapter 1 is the summary overview. Chapter 2 and 3 constitutes the complete body, and the last chapter is the conclusive overview. And as we will see, Yoga Sutra is written in the form of an essay and as a guide for the serious seeker. It's a guide for a serious seeker and also written as an essay. So it is not unlike Bhagavad Gita, it is not a conversation between two individuals. So which means, if you look at Bhagavad Gita, since it is a conversation between two individuals, it is tailored to the need of that individual. Whereas here in Patanjali Yoga Sutras, you are going to see a lot more, but in a very, very compressed form. That is why we are going to take about a year to understand the sutras. In chapter 1, Patanjali Muni says yoga is all about understanding that, and that we get carried away by the expression of the energy in the body. So he's explaining that. He's saying it is all about understanding that we get carried away by the energy that is flowing in our body. But when we learn not to be so, when we don't get carried away by the energy that is flowing out, what does the energy in the body do? It will create activations, and those activations cause reactions, and that's how we lead our life. So when we don't do that, when we don't live like that, and when we learn not to be so, we experience our true yogic nature. So being in the pure observer, what is the true yogic nature? Is being a pure observer. By being in the pure observer state for a period of time, you can know everything. When we say everything, because all the information, past and future, everything is there available in the fourth dimension. It's like a library from where you can extract that information. You can walk back in time, you can walk forward in time. Both can be done. So, in essence, we will reach a state of intuitive wisdom. So this he is explaining in the first 20 sutras, he explains all this. Then he says we can also reach this state. This state can also be reached by surrender to God. So a little bit of bhakti yoga is explained in that area. So Patanjali Muni is explaining, describing God as that entity outside the karma klesha. That's what we saw in zone A, that Ishvara is outside the karma klesha. So zone B and zone C are all in the karma klesha. They're all in the state of karma klesha. So karma klesha means there is rebirth, constant birth and death that happens to each chitta. Chitta borns, lives, and then it dies, and then goes back and reincarnates. And this cycle is going on and on and on until a time when a time comes when that chitta can get rid of its karma and kleshas. So as a first step to that, you all have come to this Patanjali Yoga Sutra class for the understanding of karma and kleshas. So this is a very big step all of you have taken. So, so by the time we finish all the sutras, you will have a greater understanding, and you will also be able to do that internally to burn away all the karma and kleshas. Patanjali Muni says, God is the source of all knowledge. When I say God, please understand, I am talking only about the unmanifest divine. I am not talking about any other thing in this class. Whenever I say God, it means Ishvara, Prabhu, or Sattva Purusha in the unmanifest form. I am not talking about any other deity. Please understand this very clearly. The seed of all knowledge comes from that Ishvara. The vibration through which God connects into everything, the language of Ishvara is Pranava or Om. That is how he connects, that is how he communicates. So after these two sections or two segments in chapter 1, Patanjali Muni goes on to the third segment in chapter 1. The last segment of chapter 1, he says, commonly people are in a state of ill health of the body. They are both in terms of the body and in the mind, they are in a state of ill health. So, how can they be? So when they have so much of, when they have this illness, how can they be in a state of observer? They cannot be in a state of observer, right? So body pain, etc., and the mind is wandering. So Patanjali Muni here recommends moderation while in life, not to jump at everything when things are happening in our favor, etc. We'll see sutras on that. So he says moderation in life is a key to settle down our vrittis. So using the technique of focusing on anything, and he says, take anything to bring your chitta to a state where it is calm and quiet. To do that, he says, take anything that you can focus on. It could be a natural scenery, it could be a child, it could be a human being, it could be some pious person, it can be anything. It could be a deity too. So take anything and focus on that. So focusing on that which attracts your attention. So this engrossment is a kind where if you get engrossed with something physical, it is called samapati. So this state is called samapati when you can get fully engrossed. So samapati means to get engrossed, to become one with something. So when you are engrossed in a physical thing and fully engrossed in that, it is called samapati. And when you can engross in a subtler thing where there is nothing physical, it could be a mantra, it could be just a sound. So those kinds of things, or a thought, those kinds of things lead you to a different state of engrossment called samadhi. So samadhi state generally occurs only when there is an abstract focus, a focus on an abstract thing. So this state of engrossment, it is something subtle and that can lead to cosmic connectivity. When you enter the state of samadhi, when we say cosmic connectivity, the connectivity to Ishvara can happen. This lets one to have intuitive knowledge. So we are not talking about material knowledge. We are not talking about the knowledge of this materialistic world. We are talking about higher knowledge, Atma Vidya. So one gets that intuitive knowledge. And this state, Patanjali Muni calls as Samadhi. So in chapter 2, Patanjali Muni says, why do we associate ourselves with the external rather than the internal? That's how he starts the chapter. And after explaining the cause of all this, he goes into the systematic process of how you can go through all the yogic steps. So he puts across a system called Ashtanga Yoga. many of you might have heard of this word Ashtanga Yoga. Ashtanga Yoga is a prescription provided by Patanjali Muni, whereby by getting into Ashtanga Yoga, you can get into higher states and realize the highest. So, since the name itself, as the name itself indicates, Ashtanga Yoga, there are 8 parts to that. And in chapter 2, he describes the first 5, which is also called as Bahiranga Yoga. The first 5 are called Bahiranga Yoga because it is all related to the external things. The next 3 is called the Antaranga
me.
Yoga.
I'm
So-
sorry to interrupt.
Yes,
Do we have a slide for viewing all these chapters or any steps that you're talking about?
that is what is the Yoga Sutra PDF.
Okay.
I sent you that, right?
Okay.
All the chapters are in that PDF. And we will be going sutra by sutra. Right now, I'm just giving you an overview.
Okay. Thank you.
And
Sir, are we seeing the right slide? We are in 2 of 3.
I'm not showing you the sutras right now. I'm just giving you an overview.
Okay.
So the 8 parts of Ashtanga Yoga, many of you might know, it is called Yama, Niyama, Asanas, Pranayama, Pratyahara. These are the 5 which comprise of Bahiranga Yoga. The first 5 are called Bahiranga Yoga. And then we have the higher dimension in Ashtanga Yoga itself called Dharana Dhyana Samadhi. Dharana Dhyana Samadhi. So that makes it 8. The other 3 he explains in chapter 3. The higher aspects of yoga are explained in chapter 3. The chapter 3, not only the Dharana Dhyana Samadhi explained, it is also a reason why he has split that into 2 parts, the first 5 in chapter 2 and the next 3 in chapter 3. The reason being, in chapter 3, after explaining the Dharana Dhyana Samadhi, then the chapter 3's name itself is called Vibhuti Pada. The first chapter is called Samadhi Pada. The second chapter is called Sadhana Pada. The third chapter is called Vibhuti Pada. And the fourth chapter is called Kaivalya Pada. So in the third chapter, Vibhuti Pada means Visesha Bhuti. Visesha Bhuti. Visesha Bhuti means very special abilities. So what he means here is, by going through this Dharana Dhyana Samadhi, by becoming an expert in Dharana Dhyana Samadhi, you are going to get certain very special abilities. These are called siddhis. There are almost about 35 sutras or so on the siddhis, various siddhis that he is going to talk about, which many of us have heard, but but have never gone into detail into that. So he will explain all these things. But these are not the only siddhis, but this gives a very good idea of where the siddhis come. These are siddhis like, you can fly. You can go from one body into the another body. You can know things which are hidden. So there is some treasure that is hidden, like jewelry that is hidden somewhere and you're not able to trace it. If you have that siddhi, very clearly you will know it is right there. Those kinds of siddhis you can bring vibhuti, that sacred ash. You can create things from air. You can create things. You can have that kind of ability. You can have levitation. you can go into the past and look at all the past events. So many such very special abilities he explains. Why he explains that is very important. He says when your nadis get purified and you are evolving, and as you go into the different levels of samadhi, these things happen. Just because it happens, it doesn't mean that you're a special person. You are just like anybody else. But if you focus on these siddhis, which many people do, they focus on the siddhis and they don't grow beyond that. So siddhis, take them as they come, as a prasadam, as something that happens on the way to the final realization. So if you think siddhis is the end, you will stop there. So he is warning, giving a big warning there. So the siddhis also come to us based on the cosmic need. So all of us may not be blessed with all siddhis. And many of us may not even get siddhis, even if we get to samadhi state, doesn't matter. So most important thing to understand is no one is greater or less based on siddhis. Just because somebody is able to bring a vigraha from nowhere, or somebody is able to bring sweets from a sweet shop, just like that they can bring. Okay, many of you might have seen this. Or there may be a huge gathering of 1,000 people. This, I know certain siddhas had this. And the siddha will ask a question to a particular person in the audience. 1,000 people are there. Okay. When that person speaks, he may speak at a very low voice. Only the siddha will hear it. Others will not hear it. So that kind of focused audio transmission siddhis can happen. So these are very high siddhis, very wonderful abilities happen to people. So he describes all this in chapter 3, and then in chapter 4, in the conclusive overview, we are going to see how does existence function. So whatever picture we saw here, we are going to see in much more detail how all these things happen. And then the two significant things in chapter 4. One is how existence functions. And secondly, what happens upon death? What happens to us when we leave this body? What is the final state upon death? So both these concepts are explained in a lot more detail in chapter 4. So this is the overview I wanted to give you. Now that we have a good understanding of what we are going to see in the next 4 chapters, let us see the sutras. Can you see the sutras now?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So we'll start with the first sutra. Atha yoga anushasanam. So shasanam, if you take the last word anushasanam, shasanam means a document, a diktat, a set of rules. In Tamil also we say sasanam, right? Sasanam. And I'm sure in many of the Indian languages we have this word called shasanam to indicate that it is a set of commands or rules or procedures or whatever. Anushasanam, anu means always to repeat or to follow. That's what it means. So Atha Yoga Anushasana means thus follows a document on yoga. Just making a statement. Here follows a statement, a set of an essay on yoga. That's all it means, the first statement. Yoga Chitta Vritti Nirodha. Many of you might have heard this sutra because this is a very, very popular sutra. And people normally quote from Patanjali Yoga Sutras. If you ask them to quote, this is the sutra that they will quote. Yoga Chitta Vritti Nirodha. What Patanjali Muni is saying, Nirodha means to control. Okay, to exercise control is Nirodha. So you're saying yoga is control. The first word and the last word, if you take yoga, Nirodha. Yoga is control. What does it control? It controls chitta vrittis. When you are in a state of yoga, all the chitta vrittis are the activations. When you close your eyes, even for a moment, the mind is jumping from place to place, right? The chitta is running from here and thither it is running. So that is the chitta vritti. So yoga is controlling these chitta vrittis. So that is what we really want. We want, when we close our eyes, we want everything to subside and we want to enjoy that peace. We can never enjoy peace as long as chitta vrittis are there. Please understand this very clearly. You can never have peace or shanti as long as chitta vritti is there. So unless chitta vrittis are controlled, there is no peace. So he's making a very important statement here. Yoga chitta vritti nirodha. Tada, we'll go on to Sutra 3. Tada drashtuhu swarupe avasthanam. Tada drashtuhu swarupe avasthanam. So we'll see what that is. Tada means from there, from that place, from then on, whatever you want to say. Drashtuhu means drashtu means to see. Drashta, it comes from there. Drashta means to see. Having seen that, Swarupe, your true form, Swarupam, your true form, having seen your true form, yes, Avasthanam. Avasthanam means the state of that being. So what he is saying is, when one observes one's true reality, when one observes one's true reality, because the true reality is the Swarupa. So once you are unaffected by activation of the chitta vrittis, the chittas and the chitta vrittis, once you are unaffected by activation of the chittas, you realize what is the nature of your true self. Only then you realize the nature of your true self. So that's the meaning of the third sutra. Tada drashtuhu swarupe avasthanam. So when you are in the state of yoga, at that time you realize the real you, the real Swarupa, the real person who you are. So what is the nature of your true self will be revealed to you. Vritti sarupyam itaratra. So vritti. Vritti means activations. In a normal way, vritti means we say anything that is getting created, right? Activations are also something that get created all the time. That's why when you close your eyes, everything is jumping here and there. New things are getting created all the time. So, vritti, sarupyam, itaratra. Sarupyam means in the form of itaratra. So, when not in the state, which state? When you are not in the state of yoga, when you are not in the state of yoga, when you are not in the state of your true self, what happens to you? You identify yourself with all the activations. You identify yourself with all the vrittis. With me? When you are not in the state of yoga, you identify yourself with all the vrittis, and that's how we think that we are this. We get angry, we get upset, we get jealous, we get greedy, all these things, or when we identify ourselves with the activations. With me? No one is answering.
Yes, sir.
Yes. Okay. So the first 4 sutras is actually the executive summary of this entire Yoga Sutra. The first 4 sutras is said, is given a complete summary of all the 4 chapters in this. So you may want, that is why if you see the entire sutras, the document that they have given you is split into parts. So after each small section, the notes in English are there. So if you read the sutra as one line at a time, it won't make much sense. It has to be read in sections. And that is the mistake many people do. They read sutras one line at a time. And many sutras may refer to 10 sutras in front of you, or it may refer to sutras after that. So it is very essential to have this kind of split up. And thanks to Dr. Rajan Narayanan of Life in Yoga, he has done this for us. He was my teacher too. So we complete the executive summary here. The first 4 sutras, which clearly explains to you what yoga means. Yoga does not mean asanas. Please understand that very clearly. From this class onwards, when somebody says yoga, stop them and ask them, what are you saying? If they say, oh, I'm talking about posture, then you say that is called Hatha Yoga. Hatha Yoga. Hatha means force. Because in doing posture, there's a bit of force that is applied. So it is called Hatha Yoga. Yoga means Ashtanga Yoga, all 8 parts. Yoga means being in union with the divine. That's what we saw. When the activations are all complete, when the activations are stilled, Yoga Chitta Vritti Nirodha. That's what we saw. When we are able to control the activations, when the Chitta Vrittis are stilled, when the Chitta is quiet, then there is an opportunity for us to connect with Ishvara. Only then and only then. So yoga is this higher science. Yoga is not asana. Please understand that very clearly. Okay. So we'll move on to, I will want to just cover one more sutra. That is sutra number 5. Vrittayaha panchatayaha klishtaha aklishtaha. Vrittayaha. We saw vrittis. Vrittis are activations. The chitta is there. Chitta is the software. And from the chitta, there are activations that are happening. So here he is explaining what are those activations. Vrittayaha. That is the plural for vrittis. Vrittayaha is the plural for vrittis. Vrittayaha, panchatayaha. There are of 5 types. Panchatayaha. Pancha means 5. But panchatayaha. Klishtaha, aklishtaha. Klishta means painful. Aklishtaha means not painful. Some of them are painful, some of them are not painful. So he's saying vrittis are of 5 kinds, and some of them are painful, and some of them are not painful. So we will stop here and we'll continue from Sutra 6 in the next class. The time is 6:55. We wind up at 6:55. Any questions? Questions on speed, questions on clarity, questions
Can
on
you-
under.
Can you again explain on that 5th one, please, sir?
6th one is vrittayaha, panchatayaha, the vrittis, the activations. Since you came towards the end of the class, you probably did not get to the, we discussed a lot
No, no.
in the WhatsApp
No.
group.
No, I was there, right? Oh, okay.
So vrittis are activations. So we will see a lot more of that. We are going to see the next 5 sutras, 6 sutras. We are going to speak only on vrittis. So you will understand that. So for now, understand vrittis are activations. So he's saying there are 5 types of activations in our head that is going on all the time. Vrittayaha, panchatayaha. Some of them klishtaha. Some of them are painful, psychologically painful. Some of them are not. Aklishtaha. In Sanskrit, if you put a, like in many of the Indian languages, it is the opposite of that, right? We are going to see all in very great detail, the karma, klesha, vrittis. This is what we are going to be doing for the next 10 months. Again and again and again and again, we are going to go into that. So by the time you finish, you will all be experts. Any other question? Is the speed good enough? Faster, slower?
Very good.
Yes,
Very
sir.
good.
Very good.
Okay. Are you able to understand everything?
Yes. Yes, sir.
People from India, Sri Lanka. I don't know how many people are in the room. Let me close this session. Please speak up. If you have any doubts, please speak up. Before we close the class. Is this all clear? Geeta, your long awaited Patanjali Yoga Sutra class has come.
Yes, sir. It's all clear.
Okay. So some of them have posted some messages here. Hmm. Sri Lanka says she is not able to unmute. I don't know why. Everyone else is able to do it, Sri Lanka. You have been chosen to remain muted. Okay. Maybe sometimes if it happens, you may have to log off and come back again. Maybe it will work. Okay, thank you, everyone. I will